Welcome. So glad you tuned in to Leap of Faith as we explore Pathos. Empathy comes from Pathos. We join the lay Ecclesial communities as they share faith journeys, testimonies, and positive and uplifting stories that will appeal to our emotions and touch our hearts and souls. Take the leap with us. Listen with the air of the heart.
Welcome to another episode of Pathos. And I am Sandee Bengochea, holding on for Dow, and Dow is away for a little bit, so I'm holding on for her today. And today on Pathos, we have the companions of the Transfigured Christ. And our very special guest today is a very dynamic young man who has traveled, who has done so much, and been so much a part of the Transfiguration and, in our lives, and such a testimony. Father Mikkel Trestrail is with us today, and he's going to be chatting with us about the companions of the Transfigured Christ. So Father Trestrail, Father Mikkel, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Glad to be here, and glad to hear that I could still be called young. I'm glad. Very appreciative.
Father Mikkel and I were just chatting before the program started, and I said, we met many moons ago, just at the beginning of this, the whole genesis of this, we met and shared many years ago. So, Father Trestrail, companions of the Transfigured Christ, can you just share with us the journey of this ecclesial community? Where did it start? What's the genesis?
Sure. Well, it all goes back to the year 2000, and that is, the Jubilee year, and it was a great year for the church, and I think a great year for us because, two young men met, Kyle Dardane and Shad Seaton. They met in the St. John the Baptist Parish in San Juan, and they were involved in the cool youth ministry, and they were looking for something more in their own lives. And they sought out from the Lord companionship. That's not the word that they used at the time, but they just wanted somebody else they could talk to, like somebody who was on the faith journey, who was praying, who could support them, listen through the Tabanka stories, listen through the ups and downs of parents. And so they found each other and they established a prayer partnership. Then at the same time in Pity Valley, I now was going through my own faith journey, and I asked the Lord as well, I wanted somebody who I could talk to, who could understand this journey and I could share with. And I did the core retreat in my parish. It came around at the time. And through the core retreat, I met Kyle. And that was on the 30th of July 2000. And it's easy to remember because the following Sunday was the 6th of August. And that's when he invited me to meet Shad. And so the three of us met on the 6th of August, which in the church is the Feast of the Transfiguration. It had no real significance for us then, but we took notes. We didn't even take note of it. It's just looking back after the years, we realized that was the day that the three founders met. And so, we met, we would pray, we would support each other. And that was the first real core that we experienced, where we were just invited to pray with each other and support each other. We would three-way calling was a thing back then. And so we would have a three-way call. We would talk about what's going on. We would pray with each other. We were slightly nerds, so we would also read encyclicals and papal documents and share about it with each other. These are 17 and 19-year-olds, so at that time. But we started to form this great bond. And, there were some other guys who started to connect with us, Mark Bain, Matthew Ragbeer, now Father Matthew Ragbeer. And out of this group of us, we were invited by Fatima College to do a retreat for the Form 6. And so we pulled together some other guys around the church that we knew, and we put on this retreat for young men. And we call the retreat Gang Experience, God's Anointed New Generation. That's the kind of thing that came up in our hearts, God's Anointed New Generation. We ran the retreat. It was a great success. And so they asked us to run the retreat again. And so we ran it again. And now the team started to feel like we want something more. This was great. This was powerful. But when we leave, there's something more we want. And Father Christian Pino, the priest in San Juan at the time, he took us on a few days of retreat in August the following year. And out of that, we felt a call to start a prayer meeting for men. And we felt a strong call to do so before the Blessed Sacrament. So that was the next big piece that came into our lives, was the Blessed Sacrament and gathering men around the Blessed Sacrament to pray, but also to share our lives. That was a big thing that we felt, that besides the Bible and the devotions, men needed a space where we could just talk about what was going on in our lives. And that's how our prayer meeting was formed. And then the name GAN became our name at the time, right? We were, a young group of guys trying to make a difference in the world, in the church. And so we kept the name GAN, God's Anointed New Generation. And we began to grow. People started to ask us to do different things. And we started to establish our identity in the church, especially with running this retreat for young men. And then eventually we went to meet with Archbishop Gilbert, And the first meeting, he said, I was a little afraid, I heard there was a gang coming to meet with me. Then I saw these, 3 little church guys, and he realized things was going to be okay, but he journeyed with us a lot. We're really grateful for his input into our lives. He would meet with us 2-3 times a year. And after a few years, he started to ask us a question that annoyed us deeply all the time. He would say, guys, this is great, but I can't write to Rome and say I have a gun, right? So y'all need to think a bit, pray a bit, and you need to tell me what animal you are. That's what, every time we met with him, so can you tell me yet what animal you are? And we're like, Your Grace, what are you talking about? He says, I need to know what you are, so where to put you in this zoo. I need to know what type of animal you are. And, what is God doing with you? And he caused us to seek out guidance. Father William Jerima, who wrote a lot on the father wound and stuff like that. He crossed our paths at that time. And he even helped us to reflect on who we were. And that's where the turning point came in 2008. Where we realized that GAN was something we were called to do, but it was not who we were. It was not our identity. And the more we reflected, the story of the Transfiguration played a really big part in our lives. Jesus took 3 men up the mountain. That was just like Kyle, Shad, and myself. And Jesus shining bright as a light for us was the Eucharist. And so the Eucharist was where we felt drawn to this transfigured light, this light that they experienced. And then the Father's voice on the mountain said, this is my Son, the beloved. Listen to him. And that is what we felt God was really calling us to do, to listen to people. And the word companion came up really strongly. And when we started to write, the bishop told us, just write. Write about your experience, write your sense of who you are. And we just wrote that we are companions of the transfigured Christ. And as we pondered that more and more, we felt that that was our name. So when we took that to the bishop now, he felt that, yes, we are starting to discern the sense of who God wanted us to be, Thankfully, at the same time, Living Water Community kind of took us under their wing. We lived in their house, Kyle and myself, for time. And we realized God was calling us to community life as well. Now, so not just a covenant life and the life of the prayer meeting, but he was calling some of us to take up the evangelical counsels of poverty, chastity, obedience. And so in 2005, Kyle and myself, we took our first set of vows as private vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And then in 2006, God finally ushered us to begin a household life. We had no money. We had nothing. But one priest challenged us and said, look, you all will be discerning forever. Pick a date and just start. And so it was about January or February. And so we looked down in the year and we said, September is good. He's like, no, that's too far. Look for a Marian feast and pick. And he said, look, May 31st, the Feast of the Visitation, that's your deadline. And so we just found a place. We asked people to help us, and we started our household community. And that is where that aspect started to grow, where we now felt this call to live the common life as well. So I don't know if you want me to pause here. And I mean, that's just 2008.
Wow.
And we have,
wow,
yes.
Father, that is just, that story is just so amazing. The fact, what really struck me is that you actually met on the day of the Feast of the Transfigured
that is what
Christ.
Struck us as well.
That is just so amazing, the way God works. That is. I know that you started, the gang was started for the young men. Fast forward to 2023.
Yes.
How do you see the companions of the Transfigured Christ now? What do you see as the mission and purpose of the companions of the Transfigured Christ?
Interestingly enough, when we met, there was this great vision of we wanted a community where all the vocations could live together. So even though, yes, we were reaching out to young men at the time, there was this deep desire in our hearts to have married people, single men and women, priests, all coming together in one community. We just didn't know how it would happen. And it's only now in 2023 we could see where our lives are taking shape. Kyle is remaining as a brother, so he's like a single man in the community. I was ordained in 2019, and then Shad is on the pathway to marriage. And so we see just in the founders, God called the three of us to walk different paths, but the paths that lead to the vision.
Yes.
And then as well, over the years, people would always ask us, why no ladies? They used to joke and say, gang really stood for guys alone, no girls, not God's anointed new generation. And we would pray about it, but we really felt that God wanted us to set the foundation with the men and to not forget the first call to reach out to fathers and to men. But then around 2011, we started to really meet some females who felt a deep call to the charism. They really genuinely felt a call to the Transfigured Christ. And in 2015, we pulled together 3 of those ladies and we began a journey with them. And we would pray with them and we took them on retreats, and they felt as if, yes, they felt a call to the charism of the community to follow the Transfigured Christ. And so in 2015, we had our first female covenant members. And then since then, we have had more. And then over the years, we have had the couples emerge in the community, people who have members who got married, and or people who came into the community as a couple. So we're starting to see the vision take hold, where, like the other night we had a prayer meeting and one family brought their young son, 3 years old, and their newborn. And it was just a joy for our prayer meeting to have their family there. Yes, the baby was crying from time to time, but that was a joy for us, because this is what we felt was the vision, that married people, single people, ordained ministers, all just coming together as brothers and sisters around the Blessed Sacrament. And that is where we feel the heart of our call. And out of that, we feel this deep call to help people find the best version of themselves. And that is where we feel our ministry lies now.
Yeah, Father, so let's get personal. Can you just share your personal journey from, because your life now has taken, as you said, Kyle went on to be a brother, so he has chosen the single life, and Shad is now preparing to get married and another life, and you have given your life completely and totally to the people of God now, as when you've decided to become a priest. Can you just tell us a little bit about your personal journey and what led you to this space that you occupy now?
Yeah, well, from very young, I think the Lord, when I met Kyle and Shad, I started hearing, an invitation from the Lord to consider the priesthood. I would be listening to music and Celine Dion will be playing and I'll hear God saying, I'm talking to you now. And the line of the song would be, she won't love you like I will. And all sorts of creative ways God found to say to me that he wanted me for himself. And so that's why I first embraced the call as a brother here. And so that has not changed. I mean, I still am a brother in the community, but I'm a brother who is ordained, so that's how I see it. And then later on, the community felt the call that, yes, we do feel that Mikkel is called to bring that ministry to the community. And so, the community put me forward to study. I had won a scholarship in 2004 that I gave up. And when we were ready for me to study for the priesthood, I reapproached the Ministry of Education. I said, look, 5 years ago, I won a scholarship. I didn't take it up, but I would like to study now. Is there anything you can do? And God would have it that they brought out a new scholarship that year for persons with disabilities, which had more benefits, to get the special technology that I would need to study and stuff. And so I was able to use that scholarship to fund my studies towards the priesthood. And so, God just provided what we needed. And then, eventually, after the long journey of study and everything, I was ordained. And the way I see this is first gift to the community and then a gift to the wider church. It's just that right now, canon law is still trying to work out how to deal with priests in new communities like ours, but they're getting there. They're almost there. So I'm waiting for that to take fruit as well.
Yeah.
Also. But for me, being in this community has been a real gift to my life. I think being with the brothers, firstly, helped me to find my independence as a blind person. I was able to start traveling on my own. I was able to start doing the cooking on my own. So being around these guys, because they were, guy love is different. It's a tough love. So they're like, Mikkel, we want you to do these things. We don't want to do these things for you. And so they really helped me to find my independence. So I realized why God called me to this community was for my own personal growth and responding to his call. So for me, I know that this is where I need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, so you just said, that the church is still trying to figure out how to deal with priests in communities like yours and so, but if we could just go back to the wider community of companions of the Transfigured Christ. We've just come out of a terrible pandemic and a lot of upheaval and a lot of things have been just turned upside down and still churning. What are some of the challenges that you faced or you see as a result of that pandemic that you see facing us? Because you do a lot of work with the young people, you do a lot of work with young women, young men, and so what are some of the challenges that CTC is facing now that you think has resulted from or is facing us as a community?
Yeah, definitely the major thing that we experienced was how the pandemic shook up our lives and the lives of our members. And so coming out of the pandemic, we felt a strong call to turn internally for a little while because we didn't have the hands and the feet to do the things God wanted us to do because a lot of our members were struggling. And so we've been trying, it's not perfect by any means, but we're trying to help members where they're at. So instead of the members coming to us, we need to go to members now, whether through calls, through visitation. So it's a lot of accompaniment, exactly what our charism is. The Lord said we have to do this for each other now. And so that was the greatest challenge, and just helping people through all of the ups and downs of life. The mental health challenges, the relationship challenges, the financial challenges, all of that, just trying to work with people. We have had to face death a lot, not because of the pandemic, but just in the last few years. Almost every 3 to 4 months, one of our parents has died in our community. Wow. It's been very strange. And having to journey with each other through that has been an experience in the last 3 years. And even myself, I lost my mom during that time too. So it has been a lot of that for us, really walking with people, companioning people on their journey. And that is where our main challenge is. But right now, we just had to close our restaurant. That was the other challenge, I guess, finances. We had to change. And so now we're trying to figure out how we're going to provide for ourselves right now. So that's a question mark for us. But thankfully, we have a new center in Robinsonville in Belmont, and we have started back our workshops because that's something that we had to put on pause during the pandemic because of the work that we do. Yes, online can work, but there's some things that we need to do in the personal space. And so we've been able to start back our workshops here. We have our workshops on dealing with difficult emotions, healing the father wound, the mother wound, workshops for couples, helping them to understand each other and better relate. And then we do a lot of one-on-one ministry now, spiritual direction, counseling, and retreat ministry. We've started individual retreats and retreat for small groups as well. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people reconnect with God because we discovered that is a fallout of the pandemic. There's been a lot of disconnect with each other as well. So we need to reconnect with each other. So those are some of the main challenges I see coming out.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with you that we need the warm body connection once more. That to be in the presence of people, relationships are so different when you actually in presence of people. And so many of our young people are going through depression, quietly and silently going through depression.
That's right. That's right.
What is the age group that you work with, Father?
We do work, I would say, from like 17 and up. I mean, because I guess we've gotten older now. So we also work with people in our age group, the 30s, 40s. So we work with anybody. Sometimes we have people in their 50s, 60s who come to our workshops or who come to us for ministry. And so we really are family ministry. We want to minister to the whole family. And even if we can't do it ourselves, we help people through our network of psychologists and stuff to find the help that they need. And so, we try to, our goal right now is to minister to the whole person and every person, but especially to the family.
Yeah. So do you have any, well, you just listed a whole lot of stuff, but when you look ahead for the CTC, what do you see as your shining star out there waiting for you? What do you see as the goal of CTC? I know finances is always a big one. I mean, all of us are struggling and fighting with that right now. But what do you see as the big goal?
I think right now God is asking us to help rebuild here in Trinidad, but then we also have 2 mission territories, Curacao and Barbados, to also give life to those 2 new younger arms of the community. And so I think the Lord is really calling us to build the family. And then as that family is built, we will become like that transfigured light for others to see and to walk with them through our workshops, through our one-on-one ministry, through the accompaniment. We've started teaching people how to really do accompaniment. And we see that as the way of the church, that the big group things, and especially after COVID, are not really going to work as before. We're in a time where, as church, we need to walk together, accompany each other, and that's where we see our thing. So it's not any big and grand things, but it really is in walking with people in small numbers, one-on-one, just making a difference, one life at a time. We want to do that through our retreat ministry at our compound in Belmont. We want to do that through our workshops. And that's where we are right now. That's a vision that we have this time.
Yeah. Whenever I think about the Transfigured Christ, it's one of my favorite Gospels. And the line that always gets me is, that we have to come down from the mountain,
That's it,
that we have to climb down from the mountain and we have to go back down there and work with the people out there, and to me that is that's a challenge we're facing now. So in so many communities. Father, we're just about 3 minutes before we close off the program, and just a little bit, if persons listening to this program saying, wow, this sounds like something I would like to become a part of. Tell me a little bit about your community. Is it a live-in community? Can people be like adjunct members, or how is it?
Sure. Well, we have 2 sets of members. We have the consecrated members who can live in the household in Belmont, or right now we're also discerning to have people who live in their own spaces but live the consecrated life with us. That's the vows of simplicity, chastity, and obedience. Then we have our covenant members who are married, single, working in the world, but they live the spirituality of the community. They companion the transfigured Christ, present in the Word, the Eucharist, and in His people. That's our mission. And so they come to our prayer meetings, they share in our ministry, and most of all, they share in their life and relationships with each other. And so people can, and then we have our retreats as well that we offer for individuals and small groups. So that's another way people connect with us, that they come on and just partake in our ministry. So they may not join the community, but they want to partake in all that we offer to help their own transfiguration to take place, to become the best version of themselves. So those are the main ways that people can join with us, whether through membership or through our ministry.
Yeah. So, Father, thank you so very, very much. And of course, like all groups now, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, and you can just look for the Companions of the Transfigured Christ. And one of the very special ecclesial communities that we have here in our Archdiocese. So, Father, thank you so very, very much for taking the time to come and share with us, and to Kyle and Shad, and all of you all. Wow. Thank you so much for all you do. Our young men are in such a dire need of help right now. Yeah. So we've been sharing with and listening to the Companions of the Transfigured Christ with Father Mikkel Trestrail. So thank you so very much, viewers, for being with us, and look out for another episode of Pathos. Thank you, Father.